Wow.
All right, ladies and gentlemen and others, we are live once again on the greatest social platform in the world. Actually, we're live on 3 platforms: Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Isn't
Love it.
that great, Clint? Oh,
We are
how was your
everywhere.
I would say how was your Thanksgiving, but I think in Canada you had it like a month ago or something, so
Yeah,
you
we
were like
cheat. We have
way
it
way
early.
ahead of us.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And my kids said, "Hey, we should get an extra holiday so that we have time off when the Americans have time off." But that just feels like it's being greedy, you
Right?
know?
Right? I mean, you're already ahead of us. So, I mean, well, I don't know. May
Can always use more, right? Can always use an
Exactly.
extra day of vacation. Who
Extra
can
time off is
complain?
great.
So it reminds me, we're having a chat the other day at lunch. This was just maybe a day or so ago, and my boss was joking. He was saying, "Hey, look, like if you have a colleague and you have 5 weeks vacation, you have weekends, and you have the number of statutory holidays that we have in Canada, you end up having this many days off in a year." And he's like, "That's just way too much." And my comment to an owner of a business was to say, "Well, it depends on whose perspective you're taking. If you're the
Bingo.
owner, it may be too much. If you're you and me, it may not be enough."
An extra day here and there, I'll take it. It all adds up, man. I mean, come on. Let's do it. Let's do this. Let's
100%.
take some holidays. All right. So tonight, we always think now, if you are in the personal finance community and if you are listening to Fired Up with Clint and Steve, I could assume you are. You probably hear about saving for retirement and the fact that most people aren't saving enough. They run out of money early, inflation, healthcare, everything is so expensive, and just people are running out of money. That's usually the dialogue that you hear. But tonight, let's flip that around. Because one of the things I would say the most common problem, listen to me now, the most common problem that I see with people's retirement accounts is they save too much. They're being too conservative with their savings. They work longer in a job that they might not like out of fear that they might run out of money, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But yet they just wasted years of their life in a job working when they really didn't have to. So this really comes down to a concept of enough, knowing you're enough, knowing how much is okay. I am there. I've got my number. I'm confident in my retirement. I'm gonna, flip the boss the bird and just get the
That's
hell
right.
out of here.
That's right.
I'm done. But that's way easier said than done, Clint. And I know you are really close to doing this yourself. I did this back in 2016 where I hit my enough number. So my question to you is, how do you know? How is anybody supposed to know what their enough is? And once you know that, how do you pull the plug from a career that you worked
Yeah,
so hard to build and you're
that's
making
right.
so much money? Like, how do you just say, okay, I'm done. See you later. I hope the shit doesn't hit the fan.
And this is something I definitely want to write about in a newsletter soon, Steve, because there's such a fine line. What is enough ties to balance, because at the end of the day, if we're always pushing off the retirement, then we're also giving up on family. We're also giving up on friendships. We're giving up on
Yeah,
travel. We're giving up on lifestyle. And
sure.
so what is enough becomes more than just what is my number. It becomes, what is enough vacation time? What is enough travel time? How do I want to live my life in a way that sets me up for maximum success and happiness? And how does the number tie into that? I agree with you that most people target a number that's probably too high. They use the 4% rule, which has a reasonable level of conservatism. We'll dive into what
Sure.
that is. And then two, they don't recognize that you can reasonably easily earn a certain amount of income when you're, we'll put in quotation marks, retired, because you and I, as an example, will never stop doing something that generates money. But it's
Absolutely.
not working for someone that requires us to be bum in seats when they want us to.
One of the things that I'd love to be able to do is I mean, we go to Mexico with a couple of our friends, usually a couple times a year, but we don't know when that's going to happen. They're like, "Hey, you want to go to Mexico in 2 weeks?" We could just say, "Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do it." I don't have to ask for time. I mean, it's such a freeing lifestyle. But a lot of people say that we didn't retire. It's more like a career change because you're still, quote unquote, working. Even if you're not working for a boss, you're still working. You're still putting in the hours. And quite frankly, what the retirement police view what you and I are doing doesn't really matter to me.
A
But
hundred percent.
you had mentioned the 4% rule, and this goes back to it's called the Trinity study, and a few professors at Trinity University years and years ago wanted to determine the safe withdrawal rate, right? So that's the
Yeah.
amount of money that you can withdraw from your investments every single year and stand a reasonably good chance of never running out of money again. And they included data from the Great Depression
Time out.
and
Time out.
from then all the way up to current times. Yes, go ahead, Clint.
Do we have a sound? Let me find one. Do you hear that?
It's
That
birds.
will be
I think
when
it's
we're
birds.
going into deep math finance. We're going to play
Oh,
the bird
gosh.
sound so that people know we're about to get quant heavy on them. I mean, they need to know it. They need to know the safe withdrawal rate. They need to understand it. But we're just giving them a little warning. Quant heavy time. So, Steve,
That's right.
take us in.
So, okay, the safe withdrawal rate directly relates to what your enough number is going to be. I'm going to tie this in just a minute. So, the professors found that in general, most people can withdraw at least around 4%
That's right.
of their net worth every single year. It stands, like I said before, a reasonably good chance of never running out of money, regardless of what the stock market is doing. It's not going to be a 100% thing, but it is a good ballpark figure. So, quick math. If you spend $40,000 a year, which is really low right now, especially with inflation, you should have about $1 million of net worth in some way. 40,000 times 25 equals that number that you should have. So for you guys out there, if you want to establish your like ballpark baseline number just to get you started, take a look at what you are spending in a year. And that alone, by the way, is more difficult than you might think because it involves tracking and figuring out like where every single dollar that you spend is going. But if you spend, $80,000 a year, guess what? You're going to need that much more money. So multiply what you spend in a year by 25, and that's the amount of money that you should have invested. Or flip that on its head and do the math opposite. So take what you have invested, multiply it by 0.04, and that's how much you can spend in retirement. Now, again, I have to stress this is not 100% thing, and there's a lot of criticism. And Clint, I'm going to ask you about this here in just a second about whether the Trinity study is like outdated or is no longer applicable. In my humble opinion, it is still a good baseline.
It's a good baseline.
And
It's a good baseline.
we're not just going to suddenly run out of money. We're going to see the writing on the wall, man. We're going to make it we're going to make adjustments if this shit just isn't working. So in my opinion, my not so humble opinion, those criticisms of the 4% rule are simply unfounded because we're not freaking robots. We are humans and we are capable of making adjustments.
Yeah, like I personally, Steve, am going to use around 6.66 as my withdrawal rate, which, if there is no returns, should deplete me down to zero in 15 years. And my thesis is that when I leave work and I start building my own business, if I'm withdrawing my investments down over a 15-year period, that gives me a
Mhm.
15-year track run to get the business up and running and generating enough income that I can stop withdrawing my retirement savings. And if I can't be successful in 15 years, I might as well just fucking run out of money. So like I'm useless at
Fair
that
enough.
point. And so for me, I've calculated a number. Hey, I want to get to this number. And if I can do that, I can draw that down over a 15-year period and I should be okay. But I want to add some complications because when you're talking about is
Oh boy.
this like what is enough? You have to start making hard decisions, and I'll let you know one
For sure.
that I've made with my wife right now. And so let's get ready. We
Oh
got a little
gosh.
math
More
coming. We got a little
burns.
math coming. So
Let's
I'm in
do
a
it.
high cost of living city. So our home right now would be able to sell for somewhere in the $4 to $4.5 million range. And my
That's
mortgage
legit.
on it is about 2.5 million. Some of that was to buy investment properties. So at the time, I think when we finished building the house, it was around 1.8. And so we've added more income properties. So
Mhm.
about 2.5 million in debt. The mortgage renews December of next year.
Okay. A year from
Rates,
now.
yeah, let's say rates around 6%. $1 million of mortgage would be $60,000 of
60,000.
interest.
Mhm.
Let's say we're amortizing that mortgage over 25 years. So we're also paying down the principal. 40 grand. So we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to service that debt, Steve.
Wow.
That's 1 million.
Right, right.
And that's after tax dollars. People, we always have to
Dude.
think about the tax man. I'm in Canada. 53% of every dollar I earn goes to the tax man. So to
Wait, wait, wait,
pay
wait, wait,
that,
wait, 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 wait,
yeah,
wait, wait,
yeah,
wait, wait,
yeah.
wait, wait, wait,
Free
wait, wait, wait,
healthcare
wait.
though, Steve. Free healthcare.
You said 5.3. You said so more than
5.3. I
half.
pay more than
More
half
than
of
half.
not every dollar, but now that I'm in a certain rate, marginal tax
Ah,
rates like you guys, every
gotcha.
dollar I earn now that's paying that mortgage, 53%. So to
Okay.
pay that mortgage, 100,000 being only 1 million of the 2.5 million, I probably need to earn $206,000 in before tax income. Multiply that by 2 gets us to 412 and
412. Yeah.
add 103 for the extra half million. Now I need to be earning $5 million before tax. Sorry, $500,000 before
Mhm.
tax just to pay that mortgage.
Mm,
Now,
that
I
hurts.
don't know about you, but that I'm getting heart palpitations thinking about it, Steve.
I am too, and I'm not
So
even doing it.
so when you say what is enough, I have to start to say, wait, that would take away any flexibility in my life. I
Yep.
would have to keep working for someone for the next 10 years, earning high income so that I could pay that and have a reasonable quality of life. Or you can say, no, I don't need that. I don't need 3,200 square feet. I don't need a backyard and a front yard. It's more than enough. Why don't I live in a townhouse in the center of the city and take
Downside.
downsize, right? You can still get a 4-bedroom townhouse and you can reduce that mortgage by more than 50%. You can reduce that mortgage $1.5 million. I could say, why don't I live outside the city and go to the burbs and be mortgage free? I could go to Tulsa, Oklahoma and live like a king, right? Like
Or
there's
where I
always,
am, I
yeah.
paid $72,000 cash for our house in 7 acres. 72 grand, done.
You
I
see,
mean, you were
the choices you have to make. Or I can say, okay, I want to live
exactly.
here. I definitely want to
Mhm.
be here. I got family, I got friends, I got my kids have become used to their school, whatever.
Yep, yep,
But
yep.
I'm gonna make some decisions that allow me to get closer to enough financially by changing my lifestyle. And so when we talk to people about the enough number, it's not just what is the number. It's your point. It's what's your spend? What are your
Mhm.
habits? What are you doing that allows the enough number to come down?
Mhm.
Because $1
How bad
here,
do you want it?
how bad do you want it? $1 cut in lifestyle is $25 that you don't have to save. And so for my wife and I, we have purchased or we have an accepted offer on a townhome that will be ready in 6 to 9 months.
Congratulations, that's
And
awesome.
6 months from now we'll sell the house. So we're
Hell yeah,
moving
man.
to get to our enough number.
This takes a lot of tough love, I would say.
Yeah.
And sometimes I come across like a dick when I say these things, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Like you were saying, Clint, you have to understand what is worth it to you. If
That's
those
right.
season tickets to your favorite sports team is worth another 5 years of working, that's fine. I don't judge you one bit. But then don't complain that it's taken you so long to retire when you don't cut back on some of those extraneous expenses, those non-required
100%.
expenses, those luxury items that you enjoy so much. I had to do this too. I didn't have season tickets, but I had the Corvette. I had the brand new Cadillac CTS. I had the Yamaha R1 sport bike. I had the house in the suburbs. I had everything that I can possibly imagine. But then one day I finally realized this is complete BS. I'm just acquiring things. These objects are not going to allow me to retire and live the lifestyle that I want. Getting rid of these objects will, because it's going to drastically reduce
That's
my
right.
expenses, which means every dollar I earn now, or at least more of the dollars that I earn, can go to what I want more. What I want more. And that was financial independence and eventually early retirement.
And did you keep the sport bike?
I didn't
Oh,
keep
okay.
the sport
Okay.
bike. And
Okay.
I'm glad. I cannot believe
Yeah,
I'm
death
alive
trap.
today.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
a
You were
30-year-old
crazy.
riding a crotch rocket. I got that thing up to 180 miles an hour once, but I still did it. I'm amazed that I have my life in limb. So that phase is
Steve
well
on
behind me.
speed. Steve
Well
on
behind
speed.
me. Yeah,
The
that may have had
It
something to
all
do with
comes
that
down
name.
to priorities, right? It all
It
comes
really
down
does.
to what do you want in life and what
Really
does it
does.
take to get it? Because everything
Yep.
you and I are ever going to talk about on the show comes down to I always boil it down to those three things, Steve. What do you want? What does it take to get it? Are you willing to do the work it takes? And when
No
you can
question
answer
about it.
yes to all three things, you can do almost anything. There's very few things that you can't do. But one of them, which we should talk about in the hot takes, one of them is being an entrepreneur. Why don't you take us
Yes.
through last week and why we're going to talk about this today?
Yes. So really quick before we get into that, one last thing about knowing you're enough and quitting. Do you know a concept, I'm sure you do, of it's called the just one more year syndrome?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So if you're not familiar with it, it's imagine you are in the position where you think you probably have enough. Like you feel pretty comfortable about your retirement. You could probably do this, but it may not be enough. So screw it. I'm just going to work one more year. Just one more year. It'll be fine. Just to, accumulate a little bit more money. That year comes around and you do the exact same logic again. It's like, okay, I have a little bit more money, but inflation and healthcare, screw it. I'm just going to work one more year. And then you work one more year. The same question comes up and you work another year. This is way more common than a lot of people think it is.
Yeah.
And the main thing that got me past the one more year syndrome and just to say, okay, I'm done, is like I alluded to before, you are a flexible person. Nothing is permanent. Yes, you may not be able to get your exact same job back if everything hits the fan. But first of all, the likelihood of everything hitting the fan in general, I mean, if you planned even a little bit, is so exactly, it's
Tiny.
microscopic.
Yeah.
And if it does, it's not going to happen in an instant. You're going to see it coming. You're going to make adjustments. But if it does, the market is always open to people who have marketable skills. Even if you have that resume gap, that 2-year, that 5-year even resume gap, there's always going to be a place for you somewhere if it comes to that. And that's what allowed me to say, screw it, I'm done. I could work one more year, but I don't want to work one more year. I know what I'm doing here, and I am willing to make the sacrifice if things do hit the fan.
Yes.
And I was out.
Yes. Yeah, there are always options. And
Absolutely.
when my wife driving with my parents, they're talking about, you make really good money, you've invested so much time in your career in the company, and
Mhm.
maybe you really shouldn't pursue these goals. The worst part, Steve, is
Mm.
everyone always fucking tries to talk you out of
I hate that. I
pursuing
really
your
hate that.
dreams, right? It's always
Yeah.
like play small, play small. Like we celebrate bigness, but we tell those close to us to play small. I think
Yep.
partially because we're afraid that if they play big and we don't, we're not making the most of ourselves. So if they stay
Right.
small, we feel better about ourselves. But hopefully, my own parents weren't doing that. That's just habit, right? And so my wife finally says, she goes, well, it's not like he's unemployable. He's been a CFO for the last 8 years. The worst thing he'll do
Right?
is go be a CFO somewhere else. As soon as she said that, Steve, I knew she was behind me and that the pursuit
I
of the
love it.
dreams and the goals were there. Because for the year
Mm.
before that,
Love
she
it.
was with mom and dad, right? Like, oh, like our family, our
Ah,
mortgage. And
gotcha.
so all
Yep.
of a sudden she was like, well, fuck, like worst case, go get a job again. Like
Go get a job.
you're pretty
Yeah.
employable. You've been doing this for 20 plus years. Like, go get a job. And I was like, now you get it. Now you know that the worst case scenario for us is to come back to what we're already doing today.
Absolutely. If you have a marketable skill, you will be okay. And this is also true if you are an entrepreneur. So this is our hot take.
Ooh,
One thing that I said
yeah,
in the last episode is most people aren't cut out for entrepreneurship. And if you're
100%.
on Twitter, which some of you are, you probably know that entrepreneurship in general is this romanticized concept of, oh, you're not working for the man and you're working for yourself. You set your own hours. Nobody's your boss. Yeah, but no, if you need money and your business is earning money, guess what? You have a boss. You have deadlines.
That's
You
right.
have
That's
things you
right.
need to do. But you know what you don't have? You don't have a team around you anymore to support you. You don't have that sales team to bring in business. You
That's
don't
right.
have people around you to pick up the slack if something happens. Now, I'm not saying entrepreneurship is bad or that you shouldn't pursue it. Absolutely not. I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurship. But the responsibilities, I mean, the instant, Clint, and I'm sure you would agree with this, but let me know if you don't. The instant you go from working for somebody else in a traditional company to working for yourself, like that first day, you're probably going to be scared shitless. And a little bit of fright is probably a good thing, but there's a huge paradigm shift that I don't think a lot of people are cut out to handle. It's just that simple.
100%. Shout out to our boy Clifton, legacy builder. If you are in the audience, do us a favor. Share this with your friends. Let's get more people in here to have a conversation and drop us questions and comments in the chat. We can see your comments when they come up. We saw one from our man Clifton and we'll respond to them. There's going to be a Q&A section to Fired Up with, I say Steve and Clint. He says Clint and Steve. So Fired Up with the boys. There will be a conversation. Maybe that's what we change it to. Fired Up with the boys.
Oh, there
Anyway,
you go.
To your point, absolutely. Let's break down the average person, right? Show up at 9, take your hour lunch break, surf
Yep.
the web for 2 to 3 hours during that day,
Yeah.
leave at 5, come home, eat dinner, maybe fast food on the way, grab a six pack, drink 3/4 of it or more while you're watching TV, go to bed, rinse, repeat. When you're an entrepreneur, that day is not possible. One, you don't have a
No,
salary. You don't have time to fuck around and buy beer and watch Netflix, because when you're starting the business, every dollar has to go into the business. Unless
absolutely.
you've built something before you press the exit button, which I'm sure we'll talk about in the fullness of time, right?
Yep.
Every dollar is going to build the business. Your brain can't shut off after work, because everything in the business that's going right, going wrong, needs to happen is always on your mind. Who do I need to email? Who do I need to call? How am I going to get more sales? How am I going to fill those sales? How am I going to procure the goods? How am I going to manufacture them? Now, Steve, let's take the example. I'm in real estate, right? I'm the CFO for a real estate development company.
Sure. Yep.
If I want to start my own real estate development company, I've built up a moderate amount of net worth, over time. Now
Mhm.
I want to go build a project. I've worked for a real estate development company for 12 plus years, but I haven't been a developer. I don't have a balance sheet that they can lean on. The only thing they
Right.
can lean on is my personal net worth. So when I go to get a bank loan to do a real estate development project, they are going to ask me to sign a piece of paper that says I personally guarantee that loan.
It's
Steve,
on
some of
you.
these loans are up
It's
to
on
$10
you.
million.
Yep. Exactly.
If we lose $2
That's
million on that project, I've just wiped out $2 million of my net worth. How many people,
that's
how many
scary.
people are willing to sign a guarantee? If you're in the audience, we've got 50 people watching on Twitter. We've got people watching on LinkedIn. How many of you are going to sign a personal guarantee that says, if I F up this project, I have to sell my house. I have to liquidate my retirement accounts.
Yep.
Who is going to say, yeah, entrepreneurship's easy. Let's do it. That's the
Yeah,
one
you
that
are
jumps out for me.
you are not a loser or a slave, as some people like to call you, if you work a 9 to 5 job. There is a certain freedom and luxury and almost like this. It's almost peaceful. Almost. I'm not going to say it's all the time peaceful, obviously, because I worked a 9 to 5 job and I didn't like it. But the ability to just go into the office, a paid for office, use company resources, paid for company resources, surf the web, like you said, kind of screw off every now and then. Don't really put in a full day's work, but you're there for 8 hours and then get your paycheck every single week. I mean, there's a lot of value in that dependability, to be able to depend on that constant paycheck. But and you
100%.
alluded to this, yeah, and you alluded to this about 5 minutes ago, Clint. A great way to pursue entrepreneurship, if you haven't done it before or you're not sure how hard it's going to be, is to start getting your feet wet before you quit your 9 to 5 job. Keep that consistent income. Keep that job. Start something on the side, like a side hustle that you
Yeah.
eventually want to build up
Yeah.
into something more. Yes, you're going to work nights. You're going to work weekends. But like I asked before, how bad do you want it? If you want to be an entrepreneur that bad, then you're gonna turn off Netflix and you're going to work on your business. It's that simple. If you don't want it,
100%.
then you're not
100%.
gonna do that.
Yeah, and I'm going to share more over the course of the next year or two, Steve, but you're waking up You're jumping on calls with your partners at 6 o'clock in the morning. You're jumping on calls with them at 6 o'clock in the morning on
Been
Saturdays.
there.
You're
Yep.
working nights when you come home from your day job. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to say, hey, I'm going to build this business. One of the questions was, what's your framework for deciding when you're going to quit? And the framework is very dependent on your lifestyle, net worth, and familial situation.
Sure.
So for me, what I look at is, can I live my life to the degree I'm comfortable with if I quit? And so what I look at is, do I have enough in savings that I can continue to afford my lifestyle, or a modicum of it that I'm happy with, with the investments that I have? And have I pre-built enough side income to supplement that? And so, for example, you and I have been building on social media for years. You sold One News business, your blog, and the package that came with it.
Yep.
You and I are both building our social media. We both have a newsletter. We're starting Fired Up with Steve and Clint. I have the Growth Guide podcast, and we create courses. We run cohorts. So we're doing things that allow us to generate a reasonable amount of income. Now, I want to bolster that to a certain point, and then the framework becomes, between the side income and the savings that I have, can I live and I have two
Yep.
older boys and a wife. So it's not fair. I don't think it's fair for me to say, oh, hey, you son, who are going into grade 11 and 12, your last 2 years at home with us, and other son who's going into high school, you guys have to live a shitty life for the next 5 years while I build a business that I'll be happy with for the rest of my life. That's not fair. I have to be able to say, hey, like, I provided
Absolutely.
you with a certain lifestyle until now. I'm going to continue to provide that till you're out of the house. And then hopefully I'm going to provide even better. So between the side income and the investments, do I have enough to maintain that number until the business is generating that number? That's how I look at it. That's my framework, Steve. What about you?
Well, for me, it was so much easier. Why? We don't have kids. So that whole level of concern, I guess, just wasn't there for us. My wife worked a full-time job. I worked a full-time job. We were both pulling in information technology salary. So it was pretty good, especially combined. And we knew that we didn't have people directly depending on us. So for us, in 2016, we didn't even have $1 million. We had $870,000, less than 900 grand. We were like, done. We're out of here. We sold both of our homes, lived in an Airstream, traveled the country for 3 years. We no longer do that. We have an off-grid house in the desert now. But at that point, it was like, it's just us. We had a couple dogs, but that's it. It's just us. So for my wife and I, it was super, super easy. But I understand not everyone's going. It's not going to be that easy for everybody. When you do have a larger family, when you do have kids, I mean, this question is going to be way more complicated. Like you were saying, what kind of lifestyle do I want to provide for my kids, and how much risk am I willing to take? Because if things go wrong, how am I going to feed them? Am I going to keep
100%.
shirts on their backs, food in their stomachs? I mean, this is a very, very important question, critical question. So I understand when people want to work just one more year, just one more year, just one more year, just to make sure that things happen. But I do stress that the market is always, always, always open for people who have marketable skills. And just because you retire, you quit your job and you do, whatever you want for the rest of your life, my friends, you would be amazed at the money-making opportunities there are out there that you just flat ignore right now. And the reason you ignore them isn't because you're a bad person, isn't because your eyes are closed. It's because you do have that full-time job. You don't need those extra sources of income. So your mind just kind of lets that stuff fly by. It doesn't notice. But once you no longer have that full-time job, then you start to notice all of these opportunities in your network from your friends. There's just places in town that need help with a website or building this or whatever. There's so many opportunities out there to get involved, to meet new people, to volunteer for positions that turn into something bigger, to make
100%.
basically to make money. And we just don't understand how many opportunities there are when we have that full-time income. So there's going to be, it's not like this, you are literally falling 1,000 feet to your death if everything goes wrong in a day. That's not how early retirement works. It just isn't.
I always look at it, Steve. It's the law of attraction combined with the law of action. And when you have the
Ooh, I
law of
love that.
attraction and you add in the law of action and you leave your job and you know what
Yeah.
you want and you're going after it, and you have a plan, the world conspires to help you. The universe works for you, not against you. It does everything it can to provide you with the path. But if you're not going to combine the I know what I want and I'm going after
Mhm.
it, and you vocalize it to the world, you vocalize it on your dream board, you vocalize it on your mood board, you vocalize it on
Sure.
your Pinterest, and you have the picture painted. You know where you're going. As soon as you leave the job and as soon as you start to take the daily actions on that path, the phone calls come, the LinkedIn messages come, and people say, "Hey, Steve,
Mhm.
I heard you're looking for a role doing XYZ. You might want to just consult on the side while you're done working. I've got a job I'd love you to consult on because, Steve, you have skills. Steve,
Right.
you have marketable job skills. So why can I leverage those? Can I borrow some of your time?"
You'd be amazed at how much that's happened. I've turned down way more money-making opportunities after quitting my full-time job than I ever did when I worked. It's just
Yes.
it's overflow this economy is overflowing with opportunities. You just have to be willing to look for them.
The
That's what's
question
so
I
special about this. Go ahead.
the
Go
question
ahead,
I
Clint.
have now, my friend, is open it up to the audience.
Yep.
Fired up, financial independence, early retirement, living a good friggin' life. What are some questions? How can Steve and I help you on your FI journey and with your life experience? And Steve, if we don't have a lot of questions coming in, we can have an early wrap on tonight's episode. We have had 1,600 people come into the room and join us, which is a good number of
Whoa,
people.
1,600. I
Right?
like
It's
it.
if
I
if
like
we
it.
were at an auditorium and 1,500 people kept walking in and out of the room, we'd both be like, "Holy shit, it's a lot of
Right?
human beings." Yeah. So I'm
We
pretty
might be
happy
onto
to see
something
that.
here.
Yeah, it's enjoyable.
Absolutely.
And I don't even know, that might just be Twitter. We might also have another few hundred or something over here on this LinkedIn thingy, and then we got the YouTube guy. We got everything going now. We're
Yeah,
social.
there's
You see
something
the
so
YouTube
cool about
feed.
being a content creator, man. And
I
I
love
mean,
it.
that's one thing that we could talk about in a future episode, how to be a content creator and make money just by being you, just by giving your opinion, your voice. I mean,
100%.
effectively, Dave Ramsey, people either love him or hate him. He's nothing more than a content creator, and he's worth, I don't know, I don't know what he's worth, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's just stupid. It's stupid what Dave Ramsey is worth, and he is just a content creator, just like you and me, just way richer, but he does the same thing. And I mean, this business, I use that term loosely, is both the easiest and the hardest thing that you'll probably ever do in your life.
Well, I like that you mentioned Dave Ramsey because something I'd like to see fired up with the boys bring on. You like how I'm just pulling an audible and changing
I
our name as
totally
we go. Fired
with
up
the
with the
boys.
boys. Something I want to see for people who are fired up with the boys to come on is not only do I want a Q&A, but I want the ability, and you and I have to figure out StreamYard. We're still pretty new. Like, how do we get someone to phone in? How do we get someone to call in? How do we get someone to jump up on stage and ask a question and tell us their financial situation and say, hey guys, how can you help? Like, what should I be thinking about? I read your newsletter today, and you talked about paying down your debt. You talked about the hard sacrifices you have to make. You talked about the avalanche method and the snowball method. And we're going to talk about those on the show. But I want people to join us and say, hey guys, can you help me? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just for me and you to jump on, shoot the shit, and jump off. Although that's fun, and we want to do that. We want to help as many people as possible live a better, happier, healthier, and more financially free life. And so if people want to jump up, ask questions, type them in. We're on Twitter. We can see them. I think we can see them if you type them on LinkedIn. We can see them if you type them in on any program. Just ask us, what's on your mind? What's your financial situation? How might we be able to help? We see you, Ken. Ken, you might have questions. Matt's in the room. Matt, you might have questions. Whatever your financial independence questions are, fire them at Steve and I, and we'll try to answer them. Else, we'll probably wrap up early tonight, but we want you all to know we're here every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And our goal is to have a conversation with you about financial independence, early retirement, money, investing, career, employment, just living your best life. That's why we're here. That's what we want to do, and we want to help you.
Money to my ears, my friend. That was well said. And if you have questions between now and next Wednesday, hit us up on Twitter. We will answer them on the show next week, or the following Wednesday. Every single Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. All right, man. I guess if there's...
Ken is saying hello. We can say hello back, Ken. Ken, do you have a question? Do you want to get the question ball started? Got some more people coming in the room. Oh, the management consulting. Yes, you're welcome for answering the question. We are here. Boom. That's why I'm looking down. I'm checking out my phone to see the questions that are coming in. So management consultant, loved answering the question. And if there's any other questions people have, we're here. Otherwise, we'll give you our 5-second countdown. 4, 3, going twice, going once. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. See you next Wednesday.
Later, bud.
Later.